Welcome, everyone, to the online presentation from the Tri-Cities Writers Festival. We would like to begin by acknowledging that we are speaking to you from the traditional unceded territory of the Coquitlam First Nation, which lies within the shared territories of the Tsleil-Waututh, Katsi, Musqueam, Kakite, Squamish, and Stolo nations. We are excited to present today's author visit with Andrea Fritz. My name is Sadie Henschel from the Port Moody Public Library, and I am so pleased today to host Andrea Fritz. Welcome, Andrea.
Thank you so much. Hechka. So my name is Andrea Fritz, and I am a author, and I'm also an artist from the Lyackson First Nations. My people are based on Valdez Island, one of the Gulf Islands. It's actually, if you go straight off Vancouver, then you will see our island of Valdez. Yeah. Um, so I am traditionally trained in all the West Coast art up and down the West Coast of BC, but I am also trained in storytelling. So I have created a series of books, and my third one is out. The series is called Coast Salish Tales, and the story that I was going to read to you today is called Raven Gets Tricked. So I really love all of our Coast Salish stories because they all have meaning behind them. So our Coast Salish tales, they're actually meant for teaching. So whenever we would want to teach our young people, we would traditionally, show them different skills that we would need to do, but we would also tell them stories. And our stories, they help us to learn important things about life, like what we're supposed to do in certain situations so that we are living a good life. So today, while you're listening to the story, try and think about some of the things that you can learn from the story. What is something that you hope that a little brother or sister might learn from this story? And then you'll be really understanding what our Coast Salish tales are about. Yeah. So I'm going to screen share, and I will show you my third story. I'll talk to you a bit more about the art. Here is third story. So this is Raven Gets Tricked. And you can see here that Coast Salish art, which is the art of my people, and the art of the area around where you guys are, is it's made of basic shapes. So these are some of our basic shapes that we use to create the artwork. And I actually only use these shapes to create my artwork. So I make these bigger or smaller, or I stick them together and bend them around a bit. And this is all I need to make anything that I can imagine. So I'm also the illustrator of my stories. So I created the artwork for these stories. And I want you guys to keep an eye out for some of these shapes in our story today. I'm sure you'll see lots of them. And try and think of where you saw some, and maybe let me know at the end. So our tale today is called Raven Gets Tricked, and it features Spal, it means raven in my language, and Smoy, which means little deer in my language. So my language is Hul'q'umi'num, and it's spoken up and down Vancouver Island, and it's also spoken on the mainland. It really depends where you are as to the dialect that's spoken, but they're all very similar Hul'q'umi'num, if that's the name. So this is my language, and you can see here some of the words that will be used in the book. There's Haichka, which means thank you. There's Haitseapka, which means thank you to each and every one of you, or thank you to many people. There's Smanim, which means children of the community. So that is all the young people in your community, and that is Smanim. Smoy means little deer. It's not a baby deer. It's not an adult deer, but kind of like a teenage deer. Then there's Spal, which means raven. And it's kind of the noise they make when you hear them flying up in the trees. Spal! Spal! I really love that. The last word is Yala, which means the edible part of a cow parsnip. So that was one of the fresh foods that we would eat. And when the cow parsnip, which is a really tall, beautiful plant, came up, we would pick the main stem and we would peel off the outside, and you could eat the inside like a vegetable. But the interesting thing is the cow parsnip, if you get it later in the season, like in the late summer, you actually shouldn't even touch it, because if you touch it, it can, in combination with sunlight, cause a bit of a burn. So it's kind of interesting that you can eat a plant when it's young, but then not even touch it when it's older. I thought that was very cool. All right, here is our story today. And remember, try and keep an eye out for some of our basic shapes and try and think of what is a lesson that we could learn from this story. One day, Smoy the little deer went to his food stores. He saw that there were no salmon, dried elk, or fern roots left. The only food he had was half a basket of berries. What am I going to do? He wondered. It's a long time before Cousin Thucky swims upstream or the Yala begins to grow. What am I going to eat? Smoy looked up and saw Cousin Spall flying by. Why will Spall not share with me? He thought. I share with him, but all he does is trick me. How can I get him to share with me? I know, Smoy said as he headed back into his house with his berries. That night, Smoy began to mash the berries while he sang. Go down to the beach, go down to the beach. Go down to the beach. Smoy was happy with his plan. He ate some of the mashed berries and went to bed pleased with himself. Very early the next morning, Smoy headed over to his cousin's treehouse. Smoy poured out the mashed berries into the snow under Spall's tree. He then danced in the berries, mixing them into the snow while he sang. Go down to the beach, go down to the beach. Go down to the beach. When he was done dancing and singing, the berries had mixed with so much snow, and it all began to freeze. Smoy had made a large mound of red snow. Eventually, Spall woke up and saw the red snow outside of his house. He was excited, as he had never seen red snow before. What is this, Smoy? Is it yummy? Can I taste it? He asked his cousin. Of course you can, Spall, replied Smoy. And if you like it, then we will share it. Spall tasted the snow, and when he decided that he liked it, then they did just that. Each of them began taking their half of the red snow back to their houses. When Spall took his first load to his house, he realized that he needed to make room for all the tasty snow. So Spall collected up all the salmon that he had saved for winter, and he took it down to the beach. He wasn't sure why he took it there, but he just threw it into the sand and returned to collect more red snow. Smoy excused himself from collecting the red snow and snuck down to the beach. There he collected Spall's discarded salmon. He took the salmon to his house. He made a fire. Then he roasted some of the salmon for a snack and went to sleep. Spall collected all the red snow that he could fit into his house. To hide his trickery of taking more than his share, Spall mixed the leftover red snow with some of the white snow to make up the difference. Spall then retired to his house, where he had piled the red snow in all four corners. He built a fire, snacked on the red snow, and went to sleep happy. For some reason, Spall woke up in the middle of the night, very cold and hungry. So he built the fire up bigger, ate some more of the red snow, and went back to sleep. The next morning, Smoy awoke to the sound of his cousin calling out for help. Help! Help! Smoy ran over to Spall's treehouse and opened the front door. To his surprise, a flood of red water came pouring out of Spall's house and washed them to the ground. They were both soaking wet and cold, so Smoy invited Spall over to his house. While they warmed up by Smoy's fire, Spall asked for a hot drink and something to eat, for he was still very hungry. Smoy gave Spall a piece of his salmon roasted over hot coals. This is very good salmon, Smoy. It tastes just like my salmon, Spall exclaimed in amazement. Do you think I could have some to take home, as all my food is now gone? Of course, Smooey said. Oh, Heichka, Smooey, Heichka. Smooey sent the warm and fed raven home with some dried salmon. Because Ball was so happy to have a clean home that smelled like berries, he didn't realize that he had only half the salmon that he'd had the day before. And even more than that, he was happy to have a friend like Smooey who shared. The end. Well, I hope you guys liked the story today and that you saw some of our Coast Salish basic shapes. I can definitely see some in the picture here today. I'm going to point some of them out to you. I can see what's called an ovoid. That's any kind of round shape in the eye here. And I can see trigons, which are any shape with 3 points and 3 sides. And let's see, I can also see some S shapes, which swoosh down and then back up all the way over here. Yeah, we have lots of our basic shapes here. So I'm going to stop sharing my screen. All right. And now I was going to see if you guys have any questions about our stories or Coast Salish culture or maybe about the artwork. Yeah. And if you would like to write your comments in your questions in the comments section, then we can read them out loud. And yeah, I will answer any of your questions for you.
So while we are waiting for some questions to come through in our chat, I actually have a question for you. Sorry,
Yes.
go ahead. You need to
No,
step away.
I was just going to go grab my noisy puppy. Maybe some of you heard him, but I think he'll be okay. What
Right.
is your question?
Yeah, so I'm curious where you do your creation of your artwork and your stories. Do you have a special space for that, or do you kind of do it wherever you're inspired?
Oh, good question. So, uh, my artwork I will usually create in my studio, but my digital artwork, which is what I use to make these books, I create at my computer, which is where I'm at right now. And I love having all my plants to make me feel like I'm a bit in nature and connected. Yeah, and so I create my artwork here. And this latest book that came out is actually a really old story from my family. So it's hundreds of years old and has been told by many generations. And so I got to sit here and I got to rework it and create artwork for it. And it felt very amazing to be able to write this story. Yeah, it's a special one. I hope you guys liked it.
Wonderful, thank you. I did. I
Yeah.
really enjoyed it.
Uh,
I love the characters were very the way that you kind of read them was very touching and they each had their very own personalities, which was really great.
yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, when I was a kid, my mom would read to me every night, and she had the greatest voices she would give. Those are the best ones when you're wanting to have a good story.
Definitely. All right, so we're still waiting on some questions, but I have another one.
All
I'm
right.
very curious about your work. So did you start as an artist and then kind of move into the writing and the books, or did it go the other direction?
Yes. So I started learning Native art in school. So actually, back in grade 3, I had an Indigenous artist come into my school, and he started to teach us. And I was lucky enough to stay with him all the way up until I graduated from high school. So I was with him for many years. He always ended up coming into my school most years and taught me about art. And so I consider myself an artist. And as I started to develop my own style after having my children, I really got into focusing on Coast Salish art, which is my people's art. Um, and since I did that, my mother, who is a teacher, she was like, Andy, you have to come in and share your knowledge. I was like, oh, okay, I might as well do that. So I went into her school and shared my art knowledge, and I realized a really important part of the art is storytelling. So we always have pieces of art up in our homes, and those pieces of art have stories behind them. So for this story, we would have a piece of art up that depicted Raven or Spall and a deer or Smooey. So we'd have Spall and Smooey in a piece of artwork. And when we saw it every day as we walked by, it would remind us of this story that we heard from our elders. and it would remind us of all the lessons that we could learn from this story. So they're very interconnected, the stories and the artwork. And yeah, that I love that about our type of artwork and our type of storytelling, because they're kind of interlinked. Yeah.
That's wonderful. Thank you.
Mhm.
So we have had a question from Janet, and Janet is wondering what your totem animal is.
Oh, good question. So, the Coast Salish people, we actually don't traditionally use totems. We have what are called welcoming figures, are the large wooden things that we create, and they're just big people that have their arms out like this, and we make them out of wood, and we put them beside our homes, facing the ocean, because the Coast Salish people were seafaring people, and so when we go to visit someone, we would travel in our canoes, and we'd come up on the shore and we would see this welcoming figure welcoming us to someone else's territory. Yeah, so that kind of is our totem creature, is the welcoming figures. Yeah, that's a good question.
Wonderful. Thank you.
Mhm.
All right. Another question is, how long does it take you to write or to create your books?
Oh yeah, I definitely get this question a lot, and I never really think about it much when I'm writing. You just kind of get into it, and however long it takes is however long it takes. But Orca, who is the publisher that helps me to create my books and distribute them, they gave me 6 months for each book to write it, which actually is not very long for a book. But luckily, I had a lot of the artwork and the story already written, and so we just had to refine it in that 6 months. But I would say, with all my efforts that I did before working with Orca, I would say each book took at least a year to write. That's not everyday writing, but that's, coming back once a week or so and refining it and telling the story over and over again and knowing that, oh, it didn't work quite well that way, so I'm going to tell it that way next time. And yeah, it takes quite a while to get a good story written and to create the artwork for it. Yeah, so at least a year.
That's tough when you're given a much shorter deadline than than you
Yeah.
might necessarily want.
Um, they asked me and I was like, "Yeah, sure, that sounds great." And then I didn't realize how much work that would be, but it worked out. It worked out well. I like doing things quickly.
Good. That's good.
Yeah.
So we have another question. Janet is here with their students, and so their students have a question for you about why do you write books?
Good question. Yeah. So this kind of goes back to what you asked before. So when I was teaching artwork in my mother's school, I realized how interconnected the stories and artwork were. So I started telling stories from my people, and I started illustrating those stories, um, just like hand drawn pieces of paper. And I would illustrate the story and tell the story, because I'm an artist. I always feel a need to have that piece of artwork. So it's kind of like a little book that I would hold up and tell people. And the teachers and students loved them so much that they asked if I could publish some of them. So I self-published one of my stories, which is the Crow Helps a Friend story, but in a slightly different format. And that was the one that I showed to Orca Publishers and got my series. So now there's 3 stories: Otter Doesn't Know, Crow Helps a Friend, and Raven Gets Tricked. And I am currently writing my 4th book, which is Woolly Dog Warms His Family. And it's about a little Coast Salish woolly dog and how he helps to make blankets to keep his family warm. Yeah, it's a good question.
I'm
Hope I
excited
answered.
for that next one.
Yeah.
What is your favorite part about writing books?
Ooh, really good question. So my favorite part about writing books is actually reading them. So I love creating the story, but I really like how when I go into a classroom or I present like this, that I read it to students. And reading a book out loud is so different than just reading it in your head. And reading to children, they always have really great feedback and really great ideas, and they can tell me about the book so that I think about it in a different way. So I just love interacting with students and hearing their wonderful questions. So yeah, my favorite part of writing books is getting to present them. Thank you for that question.
Wonderful.
Oh, my
Thank
puppy.
you.
So sick. Sorry if you guys
Wants
can
to be a
hear
part of the
him.
presentation.
He does.
Now, you had mentioned that you first started kind of doing art and being mentored by the Indigenous artist when you were in grade school. So is that something then that you always knew that you wanted to be, or when you were younger, did you want to be anything else?
Ooh, really good question. So when I was younger, I wanted to be an astronomer. So I actually went to university for physics and astronomy and got most of my degree. And then I realized that my real passion was art. And yeah, I started doing art after having my children. So yeah, it's kind of a strange pivot that I did from sciences into cultural teaching. But I found my training in the sciences to be actually be really helpful. And I teach a lot about native plants nowadays, and having that scientific background really helps. Yeah,
I was going to ask, does your astronomy come into your books at all?
I don't think it's come into my books, but it has come into my artwork in general. Like I do some larger pieces, and yeah, I love doing pieces that relate to astronomy. Yeah, really love that. I'm gonna go grab my puppy so he stops whining.
Of course. So yeah, just a reminder again, if you have any questions for Andrea, to put them into the chat on the YouTube video. I see some more coming through. So once Andrea comes back, then we will get to those ones. Thank you so much, everyone, for your questions so far. They've been wonderful. All right, here she comes with puppy in hand. The star of
I
the
thought you might want to see
presentation.
who was whining. This is
Yes.
Rocky. He likes to be in the middle of it. He's He's a year old, so he's still a bit of a puppy. Some of you might know if you have dogs. And he's quite an inspiration for my fourth book about Coast Salish woolly dogs, because they were kind of like this. They were very little and needy and beloved. Yeah.
I was actually just going to ask if he had made his way into your books yet. So
Yes, the
wonderful.
fourth book will be all about my little dogs.
Lovely. So we did have a question of, can you show your puppy? So I think we've covered that one, which is
Okay. Well, this
excellent.
is one of my puppies. His name is Rocky, and he likes to rough at the neighbors. I have another dog named Luna, but she's hiding right now. She's the old puppy.
We've had another question about which is your favorite book of the ones that you have written?
Ooh, good question. I really love all my books, but I would say this latest one, Raven Gets Tricked, is my favorite because it's a traditional story from my family, and it really makes me feel connected to all the storytellers who came before me. So yeah, I definitely would love this one the most. Yeah, good question.
Wonderful. Do you have other stories from your family that you're hoping to tell one day in your books?
Yeah, I do have other stories that I'm hoping to tell. I have an array of stories, maybe a dozen stories that I tell, and I'd say about four of them are from my family. So yeah, if I continue to publish books, then probably there'll be at least a couple more stories from my family. Yeah. One of them is about a snail lady, which I think is kind of cool. The little flea and the snail lady.
That's very interesting. I'd love to read
Yeah,
that one.
yeah,
I have a 3.5-year-old who loves snails, so if there's
right.
snails involved,
Snails
that
are
sounds
so fun.
very cool. If you could meet any of the characters from your books, which one and who would you want to?
Ooh, if I could meet any character from any of my stories, I have a book called Pointy to Angigak, and it's about a narwhal who gets lost down here, and all the animals along the west coast help him get back up north, and he gets to meet Santa at the end. And I would definitely wanna meet him, the little narwhal. Yeah, that'd be super cool.
I find narwhals absolutely fascinating, so I I could relate to that. I think it would
They're
be
so
very
cool.
cool.
Yeah,
Yeah.
and he's a very sweet character, so I'd love to meet him.
Do you keep a journal for your writing?
Do I keep a journal for my writing? Good question. No, I guess I kind of just keep notes in my head when I'm telling the story, and then I will every time I tell a story, I'll go back and change it a little bit, usually. Interesting question. Yeah.
Wonderful. Let's see, we have any more coming through our chat here.
My neighbor is outside the door, so sorry if my doggy
Oh,
barks.
no, that's okay. Is there a question that you wished more people that you were asked more during interviews?
Oh, interesting question. I really love just answering the questions that people have. I never really thought about what I would want to be asked. That's a really cool question. Um, I guess a good question that some people have touched on is what book would you want to write next? And yeah, a lot of kids ask me what animals I would want to have in my books, but yeah, what story I would want to write next is a good question. Because
And what
there's always
story
that
would you want to
next
write next?
story. Exactly. Um, I usually when I write a story, it'll come from actually seeing an animal out in nature because I love going out in nature and I will see an animal and I always think about the natural things that that animal does really well and yeah, and that will start a story about how we can learn from that animal and based on what it does really well. Um, and I have seen a cougar on the side of the road before, so I might like to write a story about a cougar. But traditionally, we don't write or do artwork about cougars because we don't want to attract them to our homes by having the cougars on the outside of our buildings. So traditionally, they're an animal that you don't normally do art about or write about. But nowadays, I think it would be fine. My house could protect me from a cougar for sure.
That's very important. I grew up around cougars, so I
Yeah,
can understand that the
they're
healthy respect and yeah,
definitely.
yeah,
Cats are cute, but big cats can be scary.
definitely, definitely. All right, let's see if we have any other questions coming through here.
Well, I would, if you don't have any other questions, I can definitely just speak a bit more about, the books. If you guys want to know, the Coast Salish Tales series has 3 books, and you can get them in most bookstores, depending where you are. A lot of them carry it, or we can order them in for you if you want to have a copy in your classroom or in your home. Yeah, and my next book will hopefully the 4th one about um, the Coast Salish woolly dog. We hope it will be coming out around Christmas time. Yeah, because it actually takes place when it's all cold outside, because that is why the family needs blankets, because they're cold. So our people used to have Coast Salish woolly dogs, and we would brush out their fur and use that fur along with other things from nature to make these beautiful white blankets. And they took a very long time to make, and they were very special. And yeah, they would keep us warm in the winter when we needed to go outside. So yeah, that 4th book will be available hopefully at Christmas.
I will be looking for that one. That sounds wonderful.
Yeah.
I will say that at our library as well, the Port Moody Library, we have the first 3 in our collection as well. So if
Oh
you're
yeah.
looking to check them out, you can check them out that way. But always support the author and
Yeah.
purchase the book
And
as well.
it's so nice to be able to go to a library and get books. That's an important thing my mom did with me and I did with my kids. We got lots of books from the library. It's so fun to go pick out what you wanted to read that week. Yeah.
Yeah. All right, we've had another question. How much time do you spend writing each day?
Ooh, good question. So I usually I write in bursts. So I'll write like 8 hours a day every day for a week, and then I won't pick it up again for a month. So yeah, just like little bursts of writing and editing, drawing and rewrite, redrawing, and yeah, it's pretty fun because to focus on something for me, that's kind of how my brain works. Is I like to focus on things really, and yeah, so I spend a good week every month writing and working on my latest book. because I'm also my main profession is as an artist, so I spend a lot of time working on other art projects. Yeah.
And where can we find your art and see your art apart from in
Cool.
your books?
I have a website, andreafritzart.com, that you can go see my artwork. And my artwork is also available at a couple galleries here in Victoria on Vancouver Island. You can look on the Aunties Collective website. They're a really great Indigenous owned artist collective here in Victoria, the Aunties Collective. And yeah, they have a lot of my artwork too.
That's wonderful. Excellent. Is there a piece of writing advice or even artistic advice that you think has been most useful to you that you've received?
Hmm, great question. Um, the whole write what you know thing is a really, really good idea. Um, interesting thing about me is I have dyslexia, which means I reverse things in my mind very easily. And I also had a learning disability for learning to read. So the fact that I wasn't very good at reading or writing when I was young, and now I can tell a story and write a story is quite interesting. Yeah, I like that it kind of turned around that way. But that
Great.
would be the most interesting. Yeah, yeah.
I feel like that's a nice inspiration for others who might be possibly dealing with something similar and kind of
Yeah,
seeing that. That's wonderful.
yeah. Just because it's hard doesn't mean it's not worth it. Learning to read and write well, yeah, it can take you really interesting places.
So far, your stories have kind of
Mhm.
been geared more towards children. Do you see yourself writing for any other age groups in the future?
Um, well, my kids are getting into middle school, and they really love graphic novels, which is such a neat idea. So in the distant future, I would love to write a graphic novel someday. Yeah, yeah, I think that would be really neat to get into a different type of book.
Yeah, that would be cool. Yeah, to blend the art in a different way then.
Yeah,
Mhm.
I might need help though, because that's a lot of drawing.
Mhm. All right, so someone has asked for the link to your writing and art pages. So I can put it in the chat here again. So it's Andrea Fritz Art.
Yeah, .com.
Let's stick that in the chat for everybody. AndreaFritzArt.com.
Yeah,
Wonderful.
look.
And Janet is just expressing their thanks, saying that their students really, really enjoyed the reading and the book and hearing all of the questions.
Yay. Yeah, hi,
Again,
Setka. Thank you. Thank you for coming,
yeah,
everyone.
yeah. Let's see if there's any last questions that are coming through here. I'm very excited about your next book. I'm very excited about the woolly dog.
Me too. It's gonna be a great book.
Mhm. I have one more question actually. Do you find that your art and your writing, or I guess kind of how do your art and your writing work together to create the story? And do you find that they change each other as you're kind of working through a story?
Yeah, definitely. I would say that when I'll create a story by writing it out first, and then my imagination, takes flight when I read it back to myself, and I'll create artwork based on it. But then the artwork that comes to mind that I create isn't always as accurate as I think it is when I read back the story again. So I always have to read the story back a few times, and they kind of interplay that way where I'll create artwork from the story and then read the story and have to recreate the artwork or alter it a little bit. Yeah. It's a really fun process. Yeah.
Yeah, I can imagine that would be really neat to kind of see how they develop together and adapt and
Huh.
everything like that. Very cool.
Yeah, definitely.
All right.
All right.
Don't see any more questions coming through our
Okay.
chat at the moment.
Well, I can
Yeah.
sign off then, and hopefully I can come back another time and read my fourth book to you all. I would really love
Yes.
that. And I'd like to say hi Tsepka Smanin. Thank you to each and every one of the children of the communities who have come today to hear a Coast Salish story and learn a bit about our culture. Yeah, thank you. Haichka.
That's wonderful. Thank you so much, Andrea. It's been
Mhm.
so great having you and hearing your story and hearing you talk about your work, your art, and your writing today. So thank you so much from we have the Port Moody Public Library as well as the Tri-Cities Writers Festival. We have absolutely loved having you here.
Thank you. All right. Hey, with
Okay.
everyone. Goodbye.
Thanks, everybody. Have a good day. All right. There we go. We'll unpin you just so you're not just looking.